afternoon and good evening to you, wherever in the world you are. Welcome to TFH, a new week and beginning of week 7, I do believe, of the UK lockdown. This is TFH, the full 100, where the truth is told. And today is the 18th of May, 2020. Guys, we've got a packed show for you guys today. Lots going on across the world. So I'm not going to waste no time. Let's get to it. Guys, I'm going to start today with a situation that's disturbing that's now come to the UK. A situation I drew your attentions to back on the 25th of April with my video. Those of you who missed it can go back and watch that. It was published on the 25th of April and it was titled Nurses Abused in the UK and the US. On that video, I brought to your attention how Trump has now started the bull rolling on turning, Trump has a habit of turning the good guys into the bad guys and him, the bad guy, into the great guy. So he slowly began to turn our nurses into actors, calling them bad people, and got his 30 to 35% of nutcases to basically go out protesting. When I showed that clip in the US, I warned you guys of a girl called Kate Semirani, or whatever her name is, and her little cult who were putting up posts about nurses and abusing them and that sort of stuff. And I warned you guys it will come over it. Well, if you have kept in touch with the news, you'd see that this past weekend, Saturday, our right-wing nutcases over here have started doing the same thing. And funny enough, they were joined by Jeremy Corbyn's brother, who Jeremy Corbyn blocked from joining the Labour Party, joining back into the Labour Party in 2017, having left in 2002 due to the Iraq War, which was a noble cause for him to have protested on that level. But he tried to come back in 2017, and Jeremy Corbyn, who's very left-winged, blocked him from coming back. So there had to be a reason why he blocked him. And I think this makes sense. But I'm going to start my videos today by showing you just a little clip from what I predicted back on the 25th of April. Take a look.
It's like they don't care about life. They don't care about the people around them, the people they love. I care about the people.
The president's policy says you can't start to reopen under his plan until you have declining numbers for 14 days, which those states and my state do not have. So then to encourage people to go protest the plan that you just made recommendations on Thursday, it just doesn't make any sense.
So now he's out of this world behavior in America. He's now got his supporters calling nurses fakes, calling them actors and actresses, saying that they were put up to do this by who? Who exactly recruited actors from all over the world to play nurses' role? It's so bad the nurses came out to block their vehicles, to stop them from heading towards town, towards the hospitals, to cause havoc. Do you know that the Trump is applauding these people? So while we're here applauding our nurses, and people in America applauding their nurses, people in Germany, Spain, France, Italy, Korea, China, they're all applauding the healthcare workers. Trump has now started a bandwagon where the nurses are being called fakes and liars and get out the way, you're rubbish, you're not nurses. He's now started that. You think he's only over there? I'm going to tell you guys about... Okay, so guys, when you watch this, it's things are very organic, and if you are informed, you kind of can tell the progression of things, because our baby right-wing people there look to the godfather Trump and his right-wing nuts over there, and everything they do over there, they follow suit. Take a look at what happened this weekend.
God's judgment is coming. Keep your space. God's judgment is coming. Stop allowing yourselves to be fucking brainwashed.
100%
Say no to this fucking shite. Yes.
I'm protesting because our liberties have been taken away by a government under dodgy scientific data, and it's an absolute outrage. I'm here specifically to honour my grandfather, who fought on the beaches of Normandy in 1944. He fought for my freedom, and the least I can do is come out here and protest for my freedom. I really resent my government telling me what I have to do, especially when it's based on dodgy scientific data. There are thousands of eminent scientists and doctors around the world that are telling us that this is a fraud. We are being conned. We are being conned by governments of all colours around the world. That's why I'm here.
Stand back, sir, please. He's pulling my trousers down! He's pulling my trousers down! He's pulling my trousers down! Please, move back! My arms are fucking high! Will you listen? Trousers up! Pull my trousers!
Now, you see, I've been upset with Obama. I've been upset that he hasn't, through this 4 years, he hasn't called out Trump. Trump consistently abuses him. Trump consistently talks crap about him, lies about him. And Obama leaves it to the press, because the press know the truth. Those who know the truth. So he leaves it to them to basically bat away his lies, Trump's lies. However, this weekend I was more impressed and I was more uplifted by Obama coming out and telling this guy what for. Okay? Take a look at this video.
The Lancet may have been looking at, it may have been statements like this from the president when he's talking about testing. Testing is something universally experts say is essential going forward in this country. And listen to how the president seems to diminish it.
It could be the testing's frankly overrated. Maybe it is overrated. We have more cases than anybody in the world. But why? Because we do more testing. When you test, you have a case. When you test, you find something is wrong with people. If we didn't do any testing, we would have very few cases.
Its highest single-day jump in new coronavirus cases yet on Saturday.
There should not be one-size-fits-all approaches to reopening, but reopen we must.
The CDC really let the country down with the testing. They had a bad test, and that did set us back.
When you hear Navarro talk, it's very discouraging because you can tell that there's an agenda.
I just want to make something clear. Vaccine or no vaccine, we're back.
Doing what's convenient, what's easy, that's how little kids think. Unfortunately, a lot of so-called grown-ups, including some with fancy titles, still think that way.
This is New Day with Alison Camerata and John Berman.
We want to welcome our viewers in the United States and all around the world. This is New Day. It is Monday, May 18th, 6 o'clock here in New York. This morning, 48 of the 50 states are reopening in some form. And we saw Americans across the country taking advantage of the relaxed guidelines over the weekend. At the same time, we also see some places experiencing spikes in cases. On Saturday, Texas reported its largest single-day increase in coronavirus cases. That is thought to be connected to an outbreak in meatpacking plants. Texas is one of 17 states that is seeing a rise in new cases, but 18 states are seeing new cases decline. So we'll break down all of the trends coming up for you.
All right, also this morning, the CDC firing back after a top White House official said the agency let the country down on testing. Overnight, our Nick Valencia reported on an outpouring of outrage from CDC officials, including one who said, quote, "This administration has shown time and time again that it has a problem with science. We are giving them science, and they don't seem to want it." As of this morning, nearly 90,000 Americans have been killed in this pandemic. Let's begin our coverage with CNN's Rosa Flores, who is in Florida, where the full state begins relaxing some restrictions today. Rosa.
Okay, this is a crisis in America like no other. I started doing these videos, I believe, when America was around about 7,000 dead. As of today, they're now approaching 90,000 dead. They are the highest. UK is the second highest. UK is the second highest because, again, our whole approach to this thing has been very dyslexic. And again, I have to apologize to those who suffer from dyslexia. I don't mean it in a way to put down dyslexia. I mean it in a way that someone who hasn't got dyslexia is behaving like they have dyslexia, if you understand what I mean by that. So that's the UK situation. Now, UK is opened up today. And from what I saw today, I think the UK public are far more sensible than our leaders. They are. Because I've got a clip of Euston Station coming up in a minute on a Monday morning. You would think that most people are that dumb that they will follow this guy, Johnson, in what he's telling them. You can go to work, you don't have to go to work. You can take public transport, don't take public transport. You can wear a mask, don't wear mask. All of that going on, people are saying, you know what, this guy's not making any sense. I'm going to make my own decision. And my hat, I salute those people and the public over here, because it just shows that the British public have got more sense than their own leaders sometimes. Now, take a look at Euston Station, that you would think people would have just flooded it and just eager to get back to work, but people are still cautious. Now, no one's saying not to go back to work. What we're saying is, let's go back to work in an orderly fashion. Let's go back to work in a way that doesn't create a second wave of this thing. Let's go back to work when a lot of things have been put in place, when the classrooms have worked out how to bring kids back to school, when the companies have worked out how to bring people back to work, when we can give out free masks they're giving out a day, each company, to each employee. So imagine how many masks we have to have. Here, we're not even trying to procure masks. We're just procuring enough for the NHS and sod the public. Now, take a look at Euston Station today, and basically how we're preparing to go back to work. They're trying their best with the government they have, is all I can say. Take a look.
Efforts to get commuters safely back to work by train are being brought in this morning. More security guards are now in place at several railway stations, and some seats on board will be blocked off to allow social distancing.
Our transport correspondent Tom Burridge joins us, as you can see, from Euston Station this morning, which, Tom, is pretty quiet compared to what it would be on a normal day at 8:10.
Very quiet, Dan. Very, very quiet indeed. I mean, there have been sort of flows of passengers off the platforms. The platforms are along that edge of Euston Station at certain points this morning, but it's generally speaking very, very quiet. Look down into the concourse. I'll step back out of the way so that Paul can give you a better view. And you really, I think, can probably see more staff than passengers down there at the moment. There are security guards on duty here. There are officers from the British Transport Police as well. They're in place in case passenger numbers are higher than expected and they need to manage the crowds in some way. We can show you some pictures, I think, quickly of what Euston looked like before the pandemic, how busy this station would normally be, and that gives you a sense of where we're at now. Let's come back to me now and just show you, I mean, let's get face coverings. You should wear one if you go on a train, on a bus, anywhere in the UK at the moment. That's the advice. If you're in a busy station, you should also wear one. If it's not too quiet, you don't have to, but you should have one at hand. And it is worth saying, last Monday, some services coming in from Birmingham into Euston were overcrowded or crowded at certain times of the day. So they are managing it. It's a really complicated dynamic, working out exactly how many people will get on a particular service at a particular time. And that's what rail bosses are having to manage in the coming weeks.
And Tom Burridge, anybody who knows Euston Station will know that is an extraordinary sight in many ways, that is so quiet on a Monday morning at 12 minutes past 8.
Okay, so, I mean, every other train station even before this epidemic got to us. You see temperature testing at train stations. You see all kinds of stuff. Like I said the other day on my other video, New York shut its metro down for the first time in its 100-year-plus history. Shut it down so that they can clean every nook and cranny of each and every train. We've got security guards trained to stop people from getting on the train when the train's full, when the train's a bit full. We have no temperature takers. We have no system to monitor that public that you might not reach any other way other than this way, to say to them, can you, who hasn't had a test, can you take a test? We've got no testing sites at the train station, and that's diabolical. However, I'm heartened by the UK public, and my hat goes out. My hat is taken off to you guys for being more sensible than our governments. Guys, I'm going to move on from the UK and the US because they're a lost cause, really. The governments are just out of this world. I want to draw your attention to three matters on this show. Mexico. I mentioned to you guys that South America is the new epicenter, and South America's problem is that they haven't been testing. Obviously, you guys know about Brazil. I'm going to bring you an update on Brazil on this show right here. But I want to bring you two stories before I bring Brazil, because Brazil's causing it itself. Brazil elected an idiot who's causing that problem for them, just like America elected an idiot who's making 90,000 people die, okay? Now, Mexico's a different case. Mexico, as well as the Native Americans, guys. I brought you guys a story about the Native Americans, how they've been ignored. I brought that about 2.5 weeks ago. So I'm coming back to that topic today. Guys, take a look at Mexico's dilemma right now. Take a look.
Coronavirus cases since the pandemic began in Mexico is staggering. More than 2,400 new infections were reported on Thursday. Meanwhile, the government is trying to move toward lifting restrictions next month. Matt Rivers is in Mexico with this report.
Miguel Garcia Galicio hasn't slept more than a few hours at a time in weeks. We're working so much, he says, and the numbers just get higher every day. He's referring to the number of dead. The funeral home he works at in Mexico City has almost run out of coffins. They've processed 7 times more bodies than normal in the last month. The reason? COVID-19.
So what he's saying here is, on this death certificate, there's 3 causes of death. There's acute respiratory failure, there's atypical pneumonia, and there's also probable COVID-19. And that's what we're seeing on certificate after certificate after certificate.
He had an appointment to pick up a body that afternoon, so we went with him. This person probably didn't die of COVID, but Miguel says it doesn't really matter. It's yet another coffin in a seemingly endless parade, now on its way to the crematorium. Mexico has only tested about 150,000 people and confirmed roughly 40,000 cases. But the government has always said that relatively low number is just a scientific sample.
Nobody is able to identify every single case that occurs in an epidemic.
The actual number could be well into the millions, says Hugo Lopez-Gatell, the epidemiologist leading Mexico's response. He quickly added that every country around the world has an untold amount of unconfirmed cases. That is why the government shut down the economy nearly 2 months ago and has urged people to stay home.
The size of the epidemic in Mexico is substantially lower than those in other countries.
But funeral home worker Miguel is worried that won't last. He drives all day through places with plenty of people still out and about. If the government gave us the real number, he says, I think we would all go out less. The official death toll is about 4,500. Lopez-Gatell says the actual number could easily be double that. Miguel thinks it might even be higher, but admits he doesn't know the whole picture. All he knows is what's right in front of him. And today, that's body number 6 being pulled from his truck to be cremated. I'm just really tired, he told us outside the crematorium, and this is going to keep happening. Nearby, earlier in the day, we watched a typical funeral procession go by. Social distancing, not a part of this tradition. Amongst those who are seeing all these deaths up close, there is genuine fear that the people holding the casket could soon end up inside one, just like it. Matt Rivers, CNN, Xochimilco, Mexico.
Now that's a terrible turnout for Mexico and many of these countries without the resources to test the people. As much as they would like to do the right thing, Unfortunately, for me personally, Mexico's a large economy. They're not the hugest, but they're around about the 13th or 14th in the world, which is quite high up. Last I looked, by the way, don't quote me on that. I think they're around about between 12th and 14th, 15th. Last I looked, it was about 13th or 14th, and they have a large economy. They can produce their own test kits. They can produce their own PPEs. Why these countries? I mean, Senegal, I brought to you guys a couple of weeks ago, a week and a half or so ago. Senegal are doing that. They produce their own test kit out of an Ebola test combination, Ebola test kit that they had, and they tweaked it and worked on it scientifically and turned it into a very efficient test kit that's proving fantastic, and they're giving it out for free to the locals. Now, why Mexico and Brazil and these other countries who probably have definitely have a larger economy than Senegal, why they will not choose to try and build up their own homegrown defenses against something like this? I really don't understand. But guys, I'm going to go over to the story of the Native Americans now. And this is really sad because they are being drowned. As much as they want to do the right thing, guys, they are being drowned out by Trump's running of the government, because he does not class them as human beings, never mind fellow Americans or the original Americans. This guy is happy to see them all exterminated if he can. Okay, so my heart goes out to them, and you know, they need all the support that they can get. So I hope that the president of the Indian nation in America, you know, I hope he seeks outside help. He needs to go to the UN, to the WHO. He needs to go outside of America, in my opinion, to get the help that he needs. Take a look at their plight, guys.
CBS This Morning, Saturday. We begin this half hour with a look at one of the communities most at risk during the coronavirus pandemic. Native Americans have long suffered from inadequate health care, and they have higher rates of diseases such as hypertension, diabetes, and heart disease that can make COVID-19 infections even worse. This week, we visited tribes in the West to see how they are struggling to get through this crisis.
It's hard to imagine when you look at the vast vistas in the rural West. There's an overcrowding problem here. But there is a problem, and it's big. On tribal lands, even here, social distancing can be hard to do.
I know some of the affected houses out here in Eastody, there's like 13, 14 people that live in that house. So, of course, they're going to get infected. So,
Terry Roberts is purchasing manager on the Wind River Reservation in Wyoming, home to the Eastern Shoshone and the Northern Arapaho tribes.
Housing is limited out here. It took me 6 or 7 years to get to my place. So, and that's after bouncing around from cousin's house to cousin's house, you know.
As Native Americans, you know, we have our sweat lodges that people go into. We do our prayer ceremonies.
Zena Aragon has 7 family members living at her house.
There's a lot of families that are having to live together just for the necessity of paying bills and car payments.
The overcrowded home situation is at least 16 times the national average.
27,000 square miles of land, 350,000 population here of Navajo citizens. And Chris, let me just say that I want to say thank you to your brother. He's doing a great job, Andrew, there in the state of New York. We're starting to team up together, and we're looking at ways to where we can partner in the future. We're going to be sending up some gloves. You know, that we have our own latex glove manufacturing facility here on the Navajo Nation. And so we want to bless the state of New York, their healthcare professionals that are on the front lines. And I know your brother Andrew is going to also help us with some of those extra supplies that he's gotten there in the state of New York. So it's a great partnership. I want to say thank you to the movie stars like Mark Ruffalo, Sean Penn, and many others that have been donating their time, their money, and also getting the word out on what's happening here in the Navajo Nation and clear across the country, matter of fact, in all tribal communities.
Right. Now, here's what bothers me, okay? This story piqued my interest, not because it's a good story for New York, and my brother being the governor, it's because it is appalling to me that New York has to cut a deal or get into a cooperation agreement with the Navajo Nation in Arizona. I mean, where the hell is the federal government? And then we start doing the research, and everything people were telling me is true. You're getting bad tests. They're telling you got to pay for your own tests. They're not paying attention to the information. They're not coming to you. And it's not like they're doing you a favor. You have agreements with the government about what they're supposed to do and not do. What is the reality about how you have been respected or disrespected under what's supposed to be the law?
Absolutely. We have a treaty relationship, a special relationship with the federal government. 150 plus years ago, our Navajo citizens were taken off of this land, taken on a long walk over 400 plus miles to a place called Fort Sumner. And they were ready to take us to Oklahoma and Florida. But our ancestors back then and our leaders back then said, no, we want to go back to our homeland. And so they signed that treaty, and that treaty was our reason for going back to our homeland. There was a reciprocal relationship here where the Navajo people at that time said, United States, if you were ever in trouble, Navajo people will be there to help. And guess what, Chris? You probably heard about the Navajo code talkers utilizing our language in order to win World War II. So tribal nations throughout the country have contributed greatly to this free country of ours. And guess what? And sometimes the first citizens of this country are at the bottom of the list when it comes to federal aid. And that's what we have been trying to say for the past several weeks now is, okay, why doesn't...
Welcome back. Now to Brazil. Yeah, to Brazil. Bolsonaro's still at it. Again, when you see this video, you'll see that there is only 30 to 35% of what I call nutcases in any of these countries who deny science, they deny climate change, they deny the virus, they deny the truth, and make up their own truths.
Brazil's coronavirus death toll has risen to 16,118, with more than 240,000 cases, making it the fourth worst affected country in terms of confirmed infections. On Sunday, the mayor of Brazil's biggest city, Sao Paulo, warned that the health system was close to collapse. Our South America correspondent, Katie Watson, now reports from there.
The death toll is still climbing and the president is still in denial. Jair Bolsonaro remains intent on putting politics before the pandemic, once again flouting global health guidelines at a protest on Sunday, even if he was finally wearing a mask.
It's priceless for politicians to have a spontaneous demonstration like this one, coming from the heart, from the soul of the Brazilian people who want freedom, democracy and respect above all.
Amid growing criticism over his handling of the coronavirus crisis, Mr. Bolsonaro is sticking closely to the minority of Brazilians who still think he's doing a good job. He and his fan base are convinced Brazilians need to get back to work, despite the science proving otherwise.
It's not the right way to do isolation. This has never happened before in the world, just closing everything down and seeing what happens.
Not even scenes like this can convince Jair Bolsonaro to change tack. People are dying and health systems across the country are collapsing. And these next few weeks are only expected to get worse. The state with the highest number of cases is Sao Paulo. The business capital already has a death toll bigger than that of China. And authorities have warned the health system is struggling. Sao Paulo residents have been in quarantine for nearly 2 months now, with businesses, schools and public spaces ordered shut. But as the weeks have gone on, social distancing has slowed. Statistics show that fewer than 50% of residents are still respecting the rules. In some parts of Sao Paulo City, shops are reopening. Authorities, they say, are turning a blind eye. The mayor on Sunday called on residents to do their bit to improve Brazil's chances.
It's difficult to believe that some prefer to subject the population to a game of Russian roulette. The indifference to death is unseemly. It's a crime of responsibility.
Traffic jams have returned despite authorities' efforts to dissuade people from commuting. Many Brazilians argue they have to work. Millions of people who work in the informal economy and depend on daily wages are struggling. The country is running out of options to tell people to stay at home at the time when it's needed the most. Katie Watson, BBC News.
And unfortunately, guys, this weekend has taught me a lot. This weekend, although I knew it was bad, I didn't know how bad it was. This weekend has taught me that the right-wing neo-Nazi lot has actually infiltrated my black communities badly. They have turned our heroes and our icons into people that we don't, my black community, those who are on that level, they've stopped respecting them. You know, like really, as a community, we really are the only community out there that anybody can come and twist our view of an icon in upside down, that within a short period of time, we start to hate them. We start to think they're sellouts. We start to think they're not for us. And really, I found out this weekend, Oprah has been lumped. I knew Obama was already like beaten down in the black community, as dumb as we are. Dumb as we are. Like you can go into the white community and beat down on the first white British-born president of Kenya. If a British-born president or Kenyan-born white gentleman who's British, whose ancestors are British, came from these shores, if he happened to make it to run Kenya, or happened to make it all the way to run Egypt, or happened to make it all the way to run Nigeria, try talking down about that person to the white community. You won't succeed. You won't succeed. And yet, guys, we are very easy to distort our own thinking, to distort our own heroes, our own icons. And it's really disgusting. And I say this with all seriousness. We have no hope in hell as long as we are uninformed. Because the only reason anybody can do that is because you're uninformed. That's the only reason. And the most ridiculous thing is, half the time they don't even realize they're sharing the neo-Nazi agenda. And then when you tell them it's neo-Nazi agenda, they want to argue with you because they're taking it like you're telling them that they've done something wrong. They're taking it like you're telling them that they've got their left foot on the right, or the left shoe on the right foot. They're taking it like you're calling them an idiot. But in reality, they are an idiot. Because even though you're not calling them that, you're calling them out to go look at whose agenda they're posting. That's what you're telling them to do. Go and take a look. You know, I had the 5-star movement. Those of you who know who the 5-star movement is, they are worse than UKIP. They are worse than Trump. They are the most extreme right in Europe right now. They're in Italy. I have people sharing their videos as proof to back their own thoughts and what their statements. So they make a statement and I'll say, no, that's wrong. And then they as evidence to back it, they're sharing stuff from, you might as well say, Hitler's party to prove a point to me. Like I'm as uninformed as you are. So we have a long journey, people, a very, very long journey. And it's heartbreaking. It really is. But guys, the story of Brazil is a story across all right-wing nations. You heard the reporter say that the 30 or 35 people who still believe he's doing a great job, they're still there, they're backing him with their cars, blowing their horns. Well, it's exactly the same in America is the 35% of nuts. And then throw into that mix Christians, those right-wing Christians who deny science. They will deny a woman who's been raped. They will deny that woman abortion, right? These are people that deny climate change, okay? These are people that deny the virus is real. They don't think it's real, okay? And they're the ones dying in droves, okay? So, guys, this madness is spreading. You saw my very first video. I called this out that it was coming over here. It took from the 25th of April when I talked about it till the weekend just gone, the 16th, I think it was, when on Saturday. You're right? What are we talking about there? About 3 weeks, right? It took 3 weeks, but here we had our first protest against nurses. In America, they were calling our nurses actors. They were calling them actors. They were calling them fakes. That's coming here too. This lot at the weekend, they didn't go as high. Maybe we didn't hear them. Maybe, obviously I wasn't there, but there could have been a few who were calling them fakes, because Kate Shemirani and her mates were hating on our nurses already 3 weeks ago, which is why I brought that news to you guys. Guys, let's not let the right-wing nuts win. We cannot let them win. And Boris, who's in place now, is just as nutty as they come. He's not the nuttiest in his cabinet, because his cabinet is full of people like Jacob Rees-Mogg, okay, who retweet stuff from far-right people, okay? They're in government right now, okay? And they're running this whole program, guys. So, guys, listen, let me go from that, okay? I've dealt with the Brazil story, nutty as they come. Now, I want to approach some other stuff which has been going on. Now, I don't know if some of you might have seen a report about a rail worker, a black lady rail worker who was spat on and later on died of coronavirus. So clearly the person who spat on her knew they had the virus or something. But she later died. Now, guys, I refer you guys to a petition. There is a petition being passed around to look after her and to help her family out and to get some justice for her. The good news is the person who spat on her is now being questioned today. Hallelujah. The poor lady died, by the way. I don't know if I've said that. She passed away. And I just want to bring you guys up to date with her story. So please take a look at this.
Rail worker Belly Majinga died of coronavirus 14 days after a man who said he had COVID-19 spat on her while she was working at Victoria Rail Station.
Well, British Transport Police are now trying to trace the man, and her family say her employer needs to be questioned on why someone with underlying health issues was working on the Concorde without PPE, as Belly suffered from respiratory problems. Well, Belly's cousin, Agnes Ntumba, joins us now. Good morning to you, Agnes. And first of all, on behalf of everybody here, our deepest condolences to you and your family on this absolutely appalling, I would say tragedy, but it's worse than that. This seems to me to be a murder. This is somebody who said they had COVID-19, deliberately spitting at your cousin, infecting her and her colleague, and your cousin is now dead. I mean, that's...
We have this story coming out of the UK, and they have a sister she was 47 years old. Her name was Bella Mujinga. Okay. Now, she was spat at and coughed at on the concourse of London's Victoria Station in March by a man claiming to have contracted the coronavirus. She died 2 weeks later of coronavirus. In a case that's united political leaders in disgust. And it comes after a series of reports of key workers across the country are increasingly being spat at and coughed at by members of the public during the pandemic. The white supremacists said they were going to do that, and now they're doing that. So what's going on with the UK government? You're not out here calling that terrorism? Because at least in America, they say if they catch you doing that, they're going to charge you with terrorism.
Welcome back. Now for my very last video, guys. I want to finish off on a bit of good news. Those of you who still deny that coronavirus is real or not. I think if you see this guy's story and you speak to those who have been to hell and back in terms of near-death experiences with regards to corona, I think those of you should try and sit down with at least one person who has been through this and survived it. This is a guy called Omar who went through the most amazing journey from the day he was admitted to hospital to the day he came out of hospital. I'm not going to say no more. Watch his story. Amazing.
Survival. Omar Taylor is 31 years old, a dad of 2, and he has survived coronavirus, double pneumonia, sepsis, heart failure, and not 1, but 2 strokes. Doctors warned Omar he may not be able to walk again, but he did. He walked himself out of hospital into the arms of his family just in time to celebrate his son's 2nd birthday. That was yesterday. Let's talk to Omar, along with Caitlin, his wife, daughter Vivian, and son Harrison. Good morning, all of you. Hello. Good morning. It's so nice to talk to you. Omar, I know you're still recovering. Please do take your time. What a recovery you have made. How are you feeling right now?
Yeah, fine.
Fine, absolutely fine. When he got to hospital, what happened then?
They put him on an isolation ward, and then he fought for about 3-4 days, and then they put him into the intensive care unit, where he fought a few more days, and then they intubated him and put him in a medically induced coma.
And I wonder if you can list for us the things that your husband had to be treated for.
He was treated to start with for a double pneumonia, sepsis, right-sided heart failure. Sorry, right-sided heart failure, and obviously COVID-19. And then while he was in the medically induced coma, he suffered a double stroke.
Were you told that he might not make it?
We were told many times to prepare for the worst because it wasn't looking good.
Oh, here it is. I mean, this is so emotional. Am I right in thinking that you were told, Omar, that doctors actually said you wouldn't walk again?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, they said he wouldn't walk again, and then we were expecting him to come out in a wheelchair, and when he walked around the...
Welcome back. I mean, that is just amazing. It really is. I am astounded that that guy made it out and he walked out. So, Omar, good luck to you, mate. And you're a champion for the true survivor. And I take my hat off to you. Guys, I'd like to finish off on something along the lines of what I was discussing about Trump starting the ball rolling. Trump's influence in the world has been a disaster. It's really been a disaster, because I'm happy to bet my last pound that the protests we saw at the weekend would not have happened if Trump was not in place. The protests they've had in America won't be happening if Trump was not in place. The high death rate and more to come. Texas opening up when they're at the highest, beating down the CDC, the Center for Disease Control, beating them down, the only truth tellers, right? Trying to put the blame on them when they've been putting the evidence in front of you, but you've been ignoring it the whole time. Look at what the guys just said about testing. He's claiming they're testing the most in the world. Now you are. When everyone else's testing is going down because they've done their work, yours is going up. So yeah, now you are testing the most in the world. However, he's claiming testing is overrated. Testing, that's the key to solving this thing. He claims testing is overrated, people. Now, that kind of talk, if you're weak of mind, that's the kind of talk that the 35% of his people follow. And that's the kind of talk that the group I'm talking about, that's the kind of talk they follow. but they just don't realize it because it permeates slowly. When he says what he says in America, these guys hear it. They might not think they're taking it on board as he's saying it. However, somewhere in the back of their psyche, it's stuck and it stays. Trump is destroying our planet. He's destroying our world. He's destroying our unity. He's destroying my black community because my black community are so confused now. They're sharing Trump propaganda videos on the platforms. They're sharing neo-Nazi videos on the platforms and praising it and backing them because they're completely lost what side they should be on. We will never unite as a community as long as one half of us doesn't know who the enemy is and the other half are trying to convince them who the enemy is. Our work for the next 10 years will be convincing the other half instead of moving forward as one. I'm putting it on here first. Watch this space. We have a lot of work to do. Guys, let me end by saying, wherever you can, those of you who know, stop the fake news. Wherever you can, challenge those who are talking right-wing stuff without realizing it. Wherever you can, teach, coach. You might fall out with some of them. It's worth it. Because hopefully, eventually, the more of us they come across talking the same sense to them, eventually they will get it. So guys, have a fantastic day and have a fantastic week. It's only Monday today, and let's look forward to the weekend once again. Take care and have a beautiful week. Take care. Bye-bye.